Alright, so this is the equation that I was asked about, and I believe given an XY chart over here, we started with the value of -3. Alright, so we're going to start with this, and so I want to talk about what we're doing conceptually. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this -3, and we're gonna plug the -3 value into our x. And when we do that, we're gonna solve for our y, and that's what's gonna tell us our y value. Okay, so as we work through this process, what we're asking ourselves is, okay, we've got a graph, and there's some line on this graph, right? And I know that my x value is somewhere at -3. But I don't know if it's at -3, 0, -3, 1, -3, 100. I don't know where this point is along -3. So when we find our y value, it'll tell us which y coordinate our -3 corresponds to. So that's just a little bit of a conceptual understanding of what we're doing. So let's go ahead and run through this process really quick. Okay, so we're going to start by saying -2 times our -3, which is the x value that they gave us, like this. So all we've done is substituted in -3 for our x value. We're now going to multiply here because we've got these two things that are right beside each other, and that's usually implied multiplication. So -2 times -3 is 6. We're going to bring down all of our other information. So 6 minus 3y equals 6. Okay, well, we're trying to isolate. Remember, our goal is to get y by itself. So think of this equals mark as a line in the sand. And we need to get from the left side to the right side, specifically for the 6. So right here, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. And 6 minus 6 is just going to cancel. So that's going to give us 0 minus 3y equals, what is 6 minus 6 on this side? Well, it's still just 0. Okay, so now we need to simplify here. So really I'm just going to rewrite minus 3y. We've got 0 minus 3y, so that's just minus 3y equals 0. We need to get everything on the left-hand side that is attached to y away from y, and we need to move it to the right side. So anything in front of the y or attached to the y, that includes signs and numbers, we need to get rid of. So because there's no other terms out here, we're just dealing with this -3. We can just divide by -3 on both sides. Because again, we have implied multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. And this will tell us that y, remember, because -3 divided by -3 is just 1. So we're left with y, and 0 divided by -3 is just 0. So when x is -3, our y is 0. So this is the same thing as saying -3, 0. This is that ordered pair. So the XY chart is just a really good way to visually set up and organize your information so that you know what you have and what you're looking for, and then at the end, what your ordered pairs actually are. So I want to go ahead and do another example, and this time I'm going to choose a y value to plug in for, and when I plug in for a y value, I'm going to solve for my x. Alright, so I've chosen my y value of -2. I've strategically chosen this, but you could actually choose any y value and solve to get an x value, because for every y value, there is a corresponding x value to go with it. So I have strategically picked -2 because it'll come out a little bit nicer for us. So let's go ahead and plug this in. So this time we've got a y value, so we're going to have -2x minus 3, in parentheses our y value now, -2, equals 6. So now we can multiply. We can multiply because of this implied multiplication. So we're going to have -2x. -3 times -2 is 6. So plus 6 equals 6. Well, this is starting to look a little bit familiar, which is why I chose it. And so now we need to get rid of our 6 on the left. We need to move it to the right. So in this case, we are going to subtract 6 from both sides, because we're going to do the opposite of our sign here. Alright, so 6 minus 6 is 0. 6 minus 6 on this side is 0. I'm going to bring down the other information. So now we've got 2x plus 0 equals 0. So we can write that a little bit nicer and say negative 2x equals 0. Now again, we're going to get everything attached to the x away from the x, and we're going to move it from the left to the right. So we're going to divide by negative 2 on both sides. And so negative 2 divided by negative 2 is just 1. And so we're going to be left with x equals 0 divided by negative 2 is just 0. So now I have another value for my x, which is 0. So in this case, our ordered pair would be 0, negative 2. Alright, so I hope that helps. So that was an example of an x value and a y value, and hopefully that was beneficial. And last but not least, I just want to return to this conceptual idea of what does this mean? So we are given a graph. This is my x and this is my y. And now we have 2 ordered pairs. So what does this mean? This means that when x is negative 3, so this is our negative 3 hash mark, then y is 0. So y is 0 here, so we would put our point there. And then if we are going to plot our next one, we're going to go over 0, so we're not going to leave the middle part, but we're going to go down negative 2, because our x is 0 and our y is negative 2. So don't move left or right, but go down 2. And so our line looks something like this. And so that would mean that at any point where there's an x value or a y value along this line, we could find the corresponding x or y value to go with it. All right, hope that was helpful.